Welcome, brave souls, to the chilling depths of horror in detail, the realm where the shadows whisper ancient secrets and nightmares come to life. I am your guide through the darkness, and on this channel, we delve into the spine-chilling world of horror stories that will send shivers down your spine. First story. Be careful hiring killers on the dark web. There hadn't been a murder in Franzburg for over 5 years. Not since Old Man Weathers killed his wife over a Monopoly match gone sour and a marriage gone even sourer. Up until last week, that was. Now I've got 3 different files sitting on my desk with 3 different victims. They stare up at me accusingly, saying, "Solve US." I pull out my bottle of Glenfiddich from the bottom drawer and find a halfway clean glass, blowing in it to get rid of any dead spiders or mouse turds. I fill it up a third of the way, then decide to hell with it and make it a double. The strong smell of it wakes my senses and burns my tongue a little at first, but in a good, familiar sort of way. I admire the brown liquid in the glass for a minute and then open one of the folders and begin to leaf through it for the umpteenth time. Each murder was spaced a couple days apart, and the killer managed to sneak in and out of the victims' homes undetected. All 3 had their throats slit with a very sharp blade and were hung upside down in their respective residences. Their wrists and ankles were tied with thick, coarse rope. They had been left like that for hours, as if someone had been waiting for the blood to drain out, like cattle or pigs. But nobody knows where the blood went. How the hell does something like that happen in my little town? Something flares up in me momentarily and I realize it's wounded pride. Someone has been in my town and has been killing my people, under my nose, and without leaving a trace of evidence. Maybe you just can't find the evidence because you're an amateur. A hack. Probably. I questioned a lot of people, as one does. Started with those closest to the victims and worked my way outward, trying to make connections. But murder isn't something I have a lot of experience with. Liars, though. Liars I can tell from a mile away. When you've been a cop long enough, you can pick them out easy enough. It's an acquired skill. The victims were young, in their 20s. People kill people they know. So who knew all 3 victims? Who had a motive to kill them? And how did they do it without getting caught? The first question requires some digging. It means interviews with people who don't want to talk. I visit each victim's closest friends and family members. I find out that the 3 were all loners, with very few friends. At least, not in real life. Not only that, but they knew each other. My suspicion that the murders are connected becomes a certainty. I look deeper into their lives, sussing out any details I can find. They were all gamers. Professional ones, apparently. Not something I had thought possible. To my surprise, when I ask about the details, the answer is always the same. Each victim was obsessed with a computer game called League of Legends. More questions lead to more answers, and eventually, after a lot of puzzle pieces coming together, I figure out how the victims were all connected. It turns out they were all in a clan together, which means they played the game together as a team. Teams in League of Legends are made up of 5 members, so that leaves 2 more people out there who are either potential victims or potential murderers. I have to find the other members of the clan. The 2 are like missing pieces from a jigsaw puzzle, and without them I can't see the whole picture. So I track them down. Sarah Green is the first. She seems pleasant enough. After inviting me inside for coffee, we talk for almost an hour, and she responds candidly and with concern for her deceased friends, but gives no useful information. "Can I get you another refill, detective?" she asks after I drain my second cup of coffee. "No, that's all right. I think I've imposed on you long enough." She walks me to the door after that and says she hopes I will be able to find some answers. I thank her, still unsure what to make of her, and move on to the next interview. Terry Wentworth is a chubby man with a ponytail and thick glasses. He has a patchy goatee which attempts unsuccessfully to hide a double chin with an unfortunate but looking cleft running down the center of it. I find myself trying not to look at it, as if to do so would be rude. "What can I do for you, officer?" he asks, looking annoyed. "I understand you played a game with these people," I say, showing him pictures of the victims. He cringes slightly. "A computer game called League of Legends? Is that correct?" "Why, yeah, so what? I played with them." Something is off already. I can tell he is more nervous, more defensive than he needs to be, but then again, some people have bad social anxiety. Maybe he is just an anxious type. Any infighting in the clan? Terry? Problems between members? Nope. No, I don't think so. His palms are sweating heavily and he wipes them on his pants, leaving huge damp spots on his upper thighs. I decide to take him down to the station, make him sweat a bit more. It works. After an afternoon in the hot box, the bastard starts talking. "Sarah, it was all her idea. I didn't even do it. It was her." This is after hours of coaxing and threatening, his shirt now completely drenched in sweat, his hair dripping like he has just stepped out of the shower. I mentioned Sarah again, saying that he was probably going to kill her next, and the guy finally cracks and turns on her. "I just found out about it, and I couldn't stop her. It was already too late. Everything had already dashed." Slow down. Take a deep breath. Just calm down for a second and tell me what happened. "You said it was her? She killed them." He takes a deep, trembling breath and goes on. "No, she wasn't capable of that. Neither was I. But we weren't going to make it anywhere in the tournaments unless she could bring on a couple new pros. Real talent, I mean, not just friends who happened to play. The two of us were top-notch, but we couldn't carry the clan anymore. We kept getting knocked out early in the big tournaments." "You mean you had them killed over a video game?" "It's not just a game. There's thousands of dollars up for grabs, man. You've got no idea. Millions if you're world class. And we could have been, if not for them. But like I said, it wasn't my idea. She set it all up. I didn't find out until later when I asked her." "Asked her what?" "Where the hell everybody was. They all just started disappearing and new players started showing up to practice. First it was Lisa, then Graham went permanently AFK. Finally, she told me Wayne wasn't cutting it either, that he'd have to disappear next. So what did you say?" I pretended to go along with it. That's what I do sometimes if I want to find out how far gone somebody is. I don't know if you've ever tried it, but if you ever start talking to somebody and they say something really rotten, just agree with them for a minute and see what sort of depravity their mind really contains. It's kind of astonishing. It's called Police Work 101, kid. I want to say but don't. All right, I'll buy it. So you tell her you love whatever she's doing to clean up the team. You just want in on it. You're curious and want to help. So she tells you. Damn right she does. Like she's proud of herself. She found an assassin on the dark web, she tells me. Some guy who'll do it practically for free. You have his name? A way to contact him. I try hard not to show my hand, but I'm getting excited at the prospect of catching this guy, and my questions come a little too fast, making him bristle momentarily. Man, I can't tell you that. If she finds out I said anything, she's coming after me next. Listen, kid, I say in my best friendly cop impersonation. You're doing the right thing here. Let me follow up on this, and I'll make sure she goes away for a long time. For the rest of her life. You didn't do anything you say, right? So you've got nothing to worry about. But you have to tell me the truth. Everything. Now, who is this guy? He looks at me darkly and seems to brood on the question for a while. But eventually he answers. He explains to me how to reach the assassin and how it was all arranged. Sarah is sitting in front of the computer screen with a sad look on her face. He's going to kill all of us. Who is Sarah? She looks at the blank screen. Dark. Empty. Him. A shiver runs down my spine, and my flesh breaks out in goose pimples. We can protect you from him, I say, but the promise rings hollow, my voice empty and false even to my own ears. No, you can't. She sighs and turns the computer on, waits for it to boot up. Within a few minutes, she is logged onto the Tor browser and is into some chat room. She types something into the window and waits. I hold my breath without meaning to. Suddenly, the screen goes completely dark. The chat window disappears. Despite the heat of the day, it feels cold in the room, then freezing. I exhale and can see my breath hang in the air. My teeth begin to clack together and chatter. Who is he? The voice is like a thunder crash coming from the computer, and I understand immediately why she was so scared. It is a wonder the speakers don't blow out. My ears are ringing, and I feel like the room is still echoing and reverberating with the sound of it. There is a presence watching us. I can feel it. I don't know how else to explain it, but it feels like when you are walking down the street and you sense someone watching you from behind. Have you ever felt that? Like eyes are tickling your neck? And you turn and see that, of course, there is someone staring at you from the front window of their house? I feel that now, but all over, like there are eyes in the walls, ceiling, and floors, all watching me. My skin tingles and I shiver. That's Detective Slate, she says in a monotone, betraying me immediately. He wants to catch you. I told him that's silly, but he doesn't listen. The young woman's face is visible in the reflection of the monitor, and I see her eyes staring far off into the distance as if she is hypnotized. Then that deep voice begins to speak again, and I find myself unable to do anything but listen. Look into the darkness, Detective Slate. Don't you want to experience it for yourself? Don't you want to sleep, Detective? Aren't you tired? Suddenly, out of nowhere, there are 5 men grabbing me and wrestling me to the floor. My heart is beating out of my chest, and I am stunned to see that my service revolver is in my hand, clenched tight in my fist. Yet I have no memory of removing it from its holster. The coldness of the barrel touches my temple, and my finger is on the trigger, trying desperately to pull it, despite my terrified brain pleading for it to listen, to stop, to relax. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And yet my index finger continues to squeeze down on the trigger as if possessed. My old partner, Steve, who has gotten there first, is wrestling with me desperately and finally manages to pry my hand from the gun. Later, I try to explain to them that it wasn't me. I didn't want to do it. Something made me do it. He made me do it. I look up and see Sarah is now banging her head down hard against the steel table, as if she has no control over herself. She brings her face down again, and blood begins to spatter and spray. Parts of her face shear off, exposing muscle and bone beneath, and still she doesn't stop. Her teeth break and chip pieces fly and scatter everywhere. What the hell? Another officer is saying, letting go of me and rushing over to her. Then he makes the mistake of looking at the screen as well. In a rapid motion, to quickly for anyone to stop him, he pulls his pistol from the holster, cocks it, and holds the gun up to his temple. The blast is deafening in the small cement-walled room. It echoes, piercing my ears and turning them deaf for a while, then making them ring. I feel like needles are stabbing into my eardrums, and I clap my hands over them protectively. But then my eyes betray me, and I find my gaze drifting back to the beckoning blackness of the computer screen, as if a siren song for that sense is calling me to stare at the darkness of that empty black rectangle. One very savvy officer who has been watching everything with wide eyes from the doorway runs in. He was not at an angle where he could see the screen and seems unaffected by it. He slams the laptop shut and then picks it up and throws it hard to the floor where it breaks to pieces. Then he brings his foot down on it, hard. He crunches it beneath his polished black shoe and looks up at us with a sweating, anxious face. "I'm sorry, boss," he says to me, looking worried for his job. On an ordinary day, he would have every right to be. But today is no ordinary day. I had to. Don't apologize. You just saved all of our lives. Thank you. We look around the room and take in the bloodbath which surrounds us. One officer dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. A suspect/witness dead while in our custody from repeated blunt force injuries to her face, also self-inflicted. Officers begin to crowd the room from the pit where they were stationed at their desks when the gunshot went off. People are asking 1,000 questions and I don't know what to tell them. Or would I even believe myself? The captain sends me home without pay, pending an investigation. It doesn't matter how many people vouch for me, how many saw the madness for themselves. It matters how it all looks. And there's no explaining what happened to a rational person. Even I can hardly believe it, and I witnessed it myself. I tried to catch a dark web hired assassin and discovered that he was no ordinary hired gun. No simple mercenary. The thing Sarah hired to kill her fellow clan members was something else. Something we as humans don't have a word for yet or any understanding of. Something that is spilling over into our world from another and feeds on our flesh and blood. Somehow. I have to stop him. Second story. Do not go into the black room on the dark web. You have been warned. Last year I did something really bad. I got onto the dark web with a few friends, and I'm telling you it is real. There's a certain site, and I'm not giving the full name. Let's just call it the Black Room. Me and my friends waited until their parents went to bed, and all three of us pulled up chairs to the computer. It was a live streaming site that read, which translates to live preview in Serbian. There was a black screen, and people were typing into the chat box in another language. We just watched and waited for something to happen. A topless woman with long dark brown hair appeared in a chair. She was wearing blue jeans. Her hands were tied with what looked to be thin blue ropes and duct tape double wrapped. I guess it was to make sure she didn't get out. Her feet were cuffed together with what looked like metal leg cuffs. She had a blank look on her face. The camera flashed off to dark again. It looked like someone was covering the camera with a towel. Then I heard the sick sound of a drill being turned on. The towel was removed. I heard her shouting in another language, probably begging for her life. Screaming and crying, but she could not move. There was a shirtless man in a BDSM mask. If you don't know what that is, I suggest you look it up. It was a black leather-looking mask with eye holes and a zipper where you could zip up your mouth. She began screaming, and I wanted to turn away, but curiosity got the best of me. He put the fat metal tip of the drill straight into her damn eye. It made a sickening squishing sound, and she was moaning and screaming as the drill went directly through her eyeball. Dark red blood began oozing out, and it looked like the poor woman was going into shock. She was shaking so bad. The camera had zoomed in. Her eye was still attached and had major blunt force trauma. It looked like the big black bloody hole. Her eye was half there somewhat. It was really hard to look at. Then the camera lens went black again. We heard two loud pops that sounded like a gun. It was silent. No more sound, no more video. The viewing was obviously over. Oh my God, I told my friends, I just think we witnessed a murder. They shot her, they really F% King shot her. My friends and I agreed we would never watch anything like this again. I went home feeling disgusted with myself. I hoped and prayed it was not real. Sadly, it may have been. I promised myself no more. I would never watch anything like that again. That lasted till about the next weekend. Next Saturday night, after playing the PS4 for a few hours, we began to get tired and smoked a few joints to wake us up. Then my best friend, we will call him Rob, suggested we get on the dark web again. Rob is a computer genius and knows how to get deep into the dark web. He used a VPN. We decided to click on the Black Room again. Rob told me that only 4% of the internet is visible to the public and 96% of the remaining is made up of the deep web. That made me feel a bit sick to my stomach. What a disturbing thought. It took a few hours and the site wanted us to pay with Bitcoin and we did. I don't know how we easily got in the first time without paying. I guess we just got lucky because they wanted us to pay next time. This time the screen was not black, and there was a concrete-looking room and a bucket. A big heavy-set man had this white pillowcase around his head with holes cut out for his eyes and mouth. You could not see his face. He picked up the bucket and began laughing, showing us the bucket and then showing what was in the bucket. I almost threw up. It was a bucket full of body parts. Human body parts floating in this clotted red goop. I was assuming it was coagulated blood. I just remember seeing bloody teeth, a few fingers, and what looked like a couple of eyeballs or what was left of them. This couldn't be real, I thought. But by the way the man was laughing, it was no joke. It had to be animal parts, one thought. Please let it be animal parts. The camera zoomed in, and on the bucket was a white piece of paper that read Victim Number 12. It was written in permanent marker. Was this the remains of some poor unfortunate soul who got brutalized like the first victim? Was this the remains of the poor lady we saw last week? Ugh, I had really hoped not. I wasn't prepared for what happened next. The screen went black again, and in a chair sat another woman, this time with blonde hair and her eyes were covered with a black scarf. She was bounded by her hands and feet with the same looking thin blue rope, and I felt very sorry for her. Her waist was strapped in with some sort of belt holding her down onto the chair. A white sheet was hung up behind her. I wanted to help her and felt like there was nothing I could do. The fat man began dipping his hands in the gooey mess and trying to shove it in the woman's mouth. She tried to hold her mouth shut, but the man got angrier and slapped her in the face. It sounded like he was telling her, "Eat it, eat it." She began to chew and cry, and then vomited the whole mess up on her pretty white silk blouse. The chat box was going wild. People were typing in different languages, and the chat box was going wild. Then I heard it. The cranking of a chainsaw. There, standing beside the poor girl, appeared the same man from the first video. He was holding a chainsaw, shirtless, black mask and all. I got a sickening feeling in my stomach. This is not going to be good. I had seen what chainsaws do to people. Chainsaw accidents are horrible. I wanted to stop viewing right then and there, but my friends were eager to watch, and I didn't want to seem like a wuss. She was screaming her guts out, flailing trying to get out of the chair. Good thing we all had our headphones on because this was really loud. I watched in horror as he began to try and cut off her arm. The chainsaw went through a little and then kicked back in a jerky upward motion, coming close to knocking her attacker out. He must have hit her arm bone, I thought. I think this really angered him. I could hear him screaming in another language, so I assume he might have got nicked by the chainsaw. Suddenly he shoved the blade directly into her stomach area. He pushed in and began to cut vertically upwards, her faint screams muffled by the chainsaw. Droplets of blood began spraying into the air onto the sheet. Little pieces of meat and tissue flew all over the room. She began convulsing, her eyes rolled to the back of her head, and she was gone. Just like that. The man slowly pulled the chainsaw out, and as he did, I could see what looked like her intestines hanging out. The screen went black. I ran to the bathroom to throw up. I think I threw up for 15 minutes. I almost passed out. My friends laughed at me, and I knew behind the laughter it disturbed them too. All I know now is there are some really sick people out in there in different parts of the world that will do anything on the web for money. These people have no heart or soul. They are inhumane and sick in the head. So stay off the dark web. There are just some things you can never forget that will disturb your mind forever. You will not be able to undo what you have seen. Remember that. Third story. I bought drugs from the dark web. Now I'm being hunted down. I'm not going to lie and claim I'm a perfect person. Hell, I'm probably not even a decent one. I used to party all the time, got involved in casual drug use and obscene amounts of alcohol. It's not something I'm particularly proud of, but with no family and few friends left to worry about me, I figured why not? I didn't have any plans past high school, so I might as well just enjoy the little time I'd been given on this planet. However, with the illegality surrounding drugs, it means there is some risk getting a hold of it. Usually one has to get involved with sketchy people in strange places. Most of the time, the product is good. After all, the dealers need to keep their customers alive. Still, just getting caught or buying fake stuff was a risk I didn't bother dealing with. Thus, I eventually turned to the dark web. Imagine that, a place online where you can buy the best quality drugs with just a couple of clicks, and they send it directly to your address in a discreet package. It tends to be pretty safe, and people even rate the various pills, full on with forums to describe each individual experience. As time progressed, a few of the .onion sites would begin to vanish off the face of the internet. Maybe the dealers quit, or maybe the FBI shut them down. No one really knows. So without a steady supplier, I had to venture deeper into the dark web in search of a new place to hand me my weekly fix. I looked around on a few forums, but most of the posts were old, and a surprisingly large amount of the sites had been taken down. Of those that still remained up, most sold dubious, weak drugs. Eventually, my search landed me with a new recommendation. It was a place I'd never even heard about, but their product was fairly cheap. As if that wasn't good enough on its own, their site seemed exceptionally professional. It might sound stupid, but if a site presents itself with a good-looking design, there's a bigger likelihood that people blindly trust them. I never claimed to be smart. Yes, I was one of those gullible people, and it damn near cost me my life. The website I found didn't even have a name. It just displayed a logo that consisted of a pill in the center of a bullseye. It only contained a single product, but it alone had hundreds of top-rated reviews, all praising it in various different languages. It didn't seem staged, and I truly believed they had been written by different people. With that, I decided to order a weekend package which held 3 pills. It was the cheapest option based on the amount of pills, and I figured it would be worth a shot. As promised, the product arrived the next Friday, with an ample amount of time before the evening would even begin. I got ready for a night out on the town, and swallowed the first pill with half an hour to spare. Of course, I made sure the dosage was fit for my body weight and previous experiences, knowing the real risk of overdose if I wasn't careful. Then, I left my house, ready to waste another night of my life. And darkness. With that, my memories were shattered into a million incomprehensible fragments. Whether I went to a club or just passed out in the street, I didn't know. It was all beyond hazy, a mesh of colors and sounds that didn't convey any meaning. It has stolen even my most basic cognitive functions. The next thing I remember is waking up on hard, rough wooden floorboards. I was soaked in my own vomit, but the utter confusion of where I was overrode my pain. It was dark, which came as both a blessing and a cause for unrest. At least my eyes wouldn't suffer, but it added to the mystery of where I'd awoken. There wasn't much in the room, except for a cupboard, a few moldy chairs, and a broken fireplace. The windows were partially boarded up and covered by dark curtains. On the floor lay 3 strangers I'd never seen before. 2 men, one significantly older than myself, and the other my own age, and a young woman looking slightly older than a teenager. I rolled over to push myself up, groaning as I realized just how much my body hurt. "Hey," I tried to call out, but my voice was too hoarse to produce enough volume. Once I was finally able to push myself to my feet, I took a peek out the window. We were in a forest, and the little room we'd awoken in looked like a hunting lodge. Whether I'd met these people during a party, or if I'd just stumbled into a drug den, I didn't know. Then the girl started groaning, finally regaining consciousness. She looked over at me in slight panic, clearly not recognizing who I was. Then she took a glance at her surroundings and shot to her feet in fear. Where am I? Who are you? I backed away from her a bit, giving her enough space to calm down. Hey, calm down. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm Wilson. I just woke up here. I was wasted last night and can't remember what happened. She thought about it for a moment, before realizing she too couldn't recall anything from the previous night. I was just partying. I don't remember. What's your name? Lisa. All right, Lisa. Do you know where we are? She shook her head. Her mind was as gone as my own. As we stood there trying to figure out what was going on, the oldest man started to wake up. He had salt and pepper hair, probably in his early 50s. I bent down to talk to him, but as he saw me standing above him, he grabbed my throat, rolled over, and started choking me. What the fuck are you doing in my house? He yelled as he crushed my throat. The girl tried to shove him off, but she was too small compared to the massive man. Luckily, her effort distracted him enough for me to push him to the side, just giving me enough time to catch some air. Stop. I coughed out. I'm not trying to hurt you. The man quickly inspected his surroundings, immediately realizing his mistake. Where am I? He asked. We don't know, I said, still out of breath. Why did you attack me like that? I thought I was at home. I didn't even leave the house yesterday. What the fuck is going on? He took a moment to gather his thoughts, rubbing the heavy sleep out of his eyes. He was a well-built guy for his age, clearly with some experience in fighting. Lisa went closer, ready to introduce herself. I'm Lisa, she said as she reached out her hand. Adam Morrison. Do you guys remember anything? We both shook our heads. The fourth guy was still unconscious, lying face down on the ground. Adam went over to shake him awake, hoping he held some clues as to what had happened the night before. Hey man, wake up, he said as he shook him another time. He still didn't react. Oh boy, that's not good. He then proceeded to turn him over. Lisa and I immediately jumped back in shock as we noticed several bullet holes to his torso. He was dead, and probably had been for quite some time. In addition, there was a note stuck to his corpse. Lisa and I were speechless, but Adam didn't seem all that horrified. He just took the note off the guy and started reading it out aloud. Thank you for your purchase. Let the games begin. On the paper, I noticed an all too familiar logo. It was the bullseye with a pill in the middle, from the same dark website I'd purchased drugs from. What? You know this logo? He asked me. Yeah. I bought some pills from there a few days ago. I did the same, Lisa said. The man sighed. I guess we're all in the same boat then. Whoever these guys are, they're not just drug dealers. What do they mean by games, though? Lisa asked. I'm not sure yet, but... He was interrupted by someone knocking on the door. We all jumped back from the sudden noise, but none of us dared open up. 3 knocks were all we got, before a paper slid in under the door. Adam rushed to pull open the door, but there was no one on the other side. All that lay before us was a dense forest through which someone could easily vanish within a second. We'd basically have to crawl to get through it. He picked the note off the ground and started reading. Dear users, thank you for participating in the yearly hunt. You have 24 hours to escape the forest, or you will be eliminated from the game. Hunters have been dispatched to track you down. Good luck. He handed the letter to me, and I read over it again. Just like the previous note, it held the same logo. What the fuck are we going to do? Lisa asked on the brink of tears. Adam went from window to window, making sure the rotten blinds and boards were properly covering them up. We're going to get the fuck out of here. But first, you need to get out of the neon yellow top of yours, he said as he pointed to Lisa. What? We need to stay hidden. These bright clothes won't help. He went to the nearby closet and started rummaging through it. Within seconds, he found some old jackets and shoes that were wet and partially broken down over time. Put these on. My clothes were already fairly dark, as were Adam's. He seemed experienced, which gave me a minor glimmer of hope. Are you sure about this? Beat staying here and getting slaughtered. We didn't need any further convincing. Adam seemed to be the only one with even the faintest idea on what to do. Because of that, we diligently followed him outside, keeping our heads low as we got ready to crawl through the dense forest. It was about midday, and still we couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Even after a few hours passed, we still didn't see any of the aforementioned hunters. Still, Adam kept telling us to keep quiet and to only step where he did. Lisa struggled to keep up, as she had replaced her high heels with shoes that were 2 sizes too big for her feet. Suddenly, Adam stopped dead in his tracks, causing us both to bump into him. He'd noticed something on the ground, a tripwire. It was connected to spikes that would have emerged from the ground if triggered, killing whoever unfortunate enough to walk into the trap. How the hell did you see that? Don't worry about that. Let's just say I have experience with it. The day went on, and my legs were getting to the point of total collapse. Adam kept looking up at the sky, but the clouds had since fallen away behind a thick layer of dense clouds. Where are we heading? South, I think. I'm not sure. I was exhausted, out of shape, and hungry. Lisa didn't fare much better. She sat down to take a break, which seemed to annoy Adam. No sooner had she stopped moving, before we heard a brief whizzing sound, as if a bee had flown by at incredible speed. What was? I tried to ask. Get down, Adam screamed. Another whiz was heard, followed by a hole produced in the tree behind us. Splinters exploded from the hole through the air. Shit, shit, shit. I screamed as I realized someone was shooting at us. Lisa got up to run in panic. Adam called for her to get back down, but it was too late. Several more bullet holes were created in the scenery around her as she ran, none even close to hitting her. It was almost as if they weren't aiming at her. Instead, they just let her keep running. She didn't get far before running into a hole in the ground. There she fell about 4 feet onto several spikes sticking up from the ground. I didn't dare look down in the hole, but I heard her hopeless screams. We couldn't help her. Still, I instinctively wanted to get up and check on her, but Adam held me down. You want to die? He asked. Just stay close to me. We need to keep moving. We basically crawled away from the gunshots. But just like with Lisa, none of the bullets even came close to hitting us. It felt more as if they were hurting us in a certain direction, but I wasn't going to stick around and find out if that was truly the case. What about Lisa? I asked. She's dead. Keep moving. We spent minutes crawling before reaching a hill. Once we'd gotten halfway down, the shooting stopped. Adam pulled me to my feet, and we kept running downwards. At the end of the slope, we finally found a clearing leading out of the forest. We got out. I almost screamed at victory, but then I noticed something in the tall grass. About a dozen darkly dressed men stood up, each wielding a rifle. They laughed at us as we retreated back into the forest. They didn't even raise their weapons, they just laughed and waved as we kept fleeing. One of them even gestured for us to keep running, and held up 5 fingers to signify how much time we had left. We escaped from the open fields, back into a forest constantly growing in density. There were no bullets flying by, but we both knew they'd follow us where we went. We needed to get out of the forest, but neither of us knew the way. Then we saw it, a mountain in the distance, only an hour's walk away. But the closer we got to the mountain, the darker it got. The clouds above were thickening, and the dense treetops blocked out every bit of light we could receive. Before long, it would start to rain, a prophecy foretold by the howling wind that accompanied us on our journey. In the dark, I kept stumbling over roots sticking up from the ground. I told Adam to wait, but he couldn't hear me over the howling wind. As I got back to my feet for the third time, he was just gone. I kept wandering on alone, calling out for him. Then, I almost fell into a deep pit dug into the ground. Inside lay several dozen corpses in various stages of decay. Then it hit me that the hunters wanted us to go here. They needed us to see this pit, so we could know what awaited us when we inevitably lost the game. "Adam," I called out, but through the developing storm, he couldn't hear me. I just kept walking, watching as darkness overwhelmed my surroundings. I started to hear twigs breaking around me, something stalking me almost in absolute silence. Then something caught around my leg and I came crashing down to the ground. It was a tripwire, but no trap had been activated. I let out a mild sigh of relief when I heard someone call out for me. I looked to the side to find Adam nailed to a tree by the trap that had been activated. He'd tripped it before me, causing him to get impaled by metal spikes. He couldn't move. He was too wounded. "I found the exit, but I got careless," he groaned. "Oh, God," I said as I tried to pull the spikes out from his abdomen. It was a futile task. He was pretty much nailed to the tree. There was a cave in the wall behind me. Adam pointed to it with a trembling finger. "Just go," he let out in merely a whisper. With that, he let out his last breath and drifted off to eternal slumber. Without hesitating, I started running into the cave. Once inside, I had to rely on my other senses to get through. It was pitch black, but the draft produced meant there had to be an opening on the other side. I felt my way along the walls as I heard footsteps behind me. I just kept going as fast as I could until I finally saw the light on the other end of the tunnel. Then I ran again, my lungs burning and my legs wobbly. I couldn't see any rain on the other side, but the storm might just be trapped on the other side of the mountain. There were footsteps following behind me, followed by chuckles that echoed through the cave. I had to keep going. I couldn't give up. Then I finally entered open space again, just in time for my legs to give in. I was out from the mountain, and in front of me lay nothing but empty, open fields. I tried to crawl, but I was too weak. I just turned around and saw 5 men in dark clothing come outside, each of them with a rifle. One of the men raised his weapon, ready to fire upon me, but one of the others stopped him. "Stop," he said. "He found the way out of the forest. The hunt has ended." They chuckled again before returning into the cave. For them, it had just been a game, a hunt that they'd already gone through 100 times before. I was just a random victim that happened to purchase a drug off their website. It took me another 3 days to traverse the massive landscape and find the nearest town, but the hunters had at least let me live. Once home, I called the police, told them everything that I knew. Of course, the website had been removed by then, and I couldn't for the life of me find the forest they'd previously chased me through. Officially, no one has gone missing, because the people chosen for the hunt were people who wouldn't be missed, including me. Fourth story. There is a place much worse than the dark web. The internet is an amazing place. There are endless opportunities, things to see, to read, friends to make, and so much more. But there are bad places, too. We all know that, but no one knows the true extent of the terror. The truth. I have to post this here because I don't have long, but I'll tell my story in full. You see, I'm one of those computer kids fascinated by technology. I could program the universe if you gave me enough money. I get straight A's at school, and my computer science teacher loves me. Safe to say I'm pretty skilled when it comes to the internet. My knowledge of tech and the internet has led to a certain fascination with the deep web and dark web. I managed to burrow my way in there a few years back, and I've been a habitual surfer ever since. Despite common tales of snuff, rape, child porn and all that, I've not continually seen much extreme stuff on the dark web. Instead, it seems to be a conglomeration of weirdos who want people to shit on them, and occasionally the odd pedophile. But overall, the dark web is a small part of the net with a bunch of empty websites and links floating about in cyberspace. That is, unless you know where to look. I have, out of morbid curiosity, visited places that I perhaps shouldn't have. Once, I was in chat room, bored out of my mind, and asked a bunch of other nameless, faceless dark web surfers if they knew any of the really fucked up places. The responses were disturbing. Links to websites with things I had never heard of, child porn for sale, nuclear warheads, up to $100 million, live snuff films, hitmen for hire, etc. One of the users even linked to something called Daisy's Destruction, the title of which was enough to put me off. You see, for desensitized folk, and I too thought myself desensitized, this may not sound like it's overly terrible, but to actually see those things, I can imagine it destroying people. And if you don't have the technological capability of protecting yourself and your information from the bad people, as they often term themselves, you can end up in serious trouble. Not to mention, the feds constantly try to catch people snooping about. It's safe to say the dark web can be a terrible place. A collection of the world's most evil people. And I thought I'd seen it all, but man, I was wrong. There is another kind of terror that few people talk openly about. It's the purest form of fear. And no, it's not fear of the unknown. It's the one thing all organisms continually try to avoid. It's the fear of it that drives evolution itself. The end. The end of life. The end of everything. It's the fear that we're obsessed with apocalypse theories, the big freeze, alien invasions, nuclear war hypotheses, so much more. It's the fear of not existing that we, and all other life forms, strive to escape. And it's the end that I found. Let's consider the iceberg theory. Roughly 4% of the internet is at the safe zone. Below that is the deep web, which makes up about 90%. Then at the very bottom of the iceberg is the dark web. But what I found, by comparison, is like the Challenger Deep, the abyssal zone, far beyond the safe and warm light of the internet. It started 2 days ago. I was at the bottom of the iceberg again when I came across a small link. There was nothing special about it, other than the fact that it was colored yellow. I clicked it. Suddenly, my computer screen lit up with some kind of 3D simulation, a 360 degrees view, and it looked like the Matrix digital rain. Computer code in a language even I had never seen was pouring, and as it pooled at the bottom of the simulation, it formed a sentence. Access denied. You do not have permission to access this region. Well, I wasn't having that. I grinned wickedly. Game on. I searched around the simulation for anything at all, but the digital rain had seeped away. Suddenly, though, at one end of the simulation, a gap opened. At this point, I was convinced this was some kind of VR video game. I was too busy figuring out if I could get access to wonder whether or not I should. The gap gradually grew wider, letting in blue light from the surrounding area, and I began to see links to documents. They were nearly all named with random strings of letters and symbols. All except one. The archive. I clicked on it. It opened a document titled Earth 4.5 G8 2040 AD, and my interest was immediately captured. I scrolled through the document, which seemed to be a generally basic timeline of the history of the Earth, but with some scientific declarations that I was not familiar with. I realized that it would take me an incredibly long amount of time to scroll through 4 billion years of history, so I searched around for anything else. The pages with the timeline on were surrounded by that same language, one that I didn't know. Aha! In the top right, I noticed what looked vaguely like a search bar, so I clicked on that and typed in 2002, the year of my birth. The pages seemed to shoot upward at Mach 50 before halting on one page, where 2002 was one of the years listed. I was oddly shocked to see that it listed the major events of that year. North Korea admits the development of nuclear weapons in defiance of the treaty. NASA's 2001 Mars Odyssey space probe begins to map the surface of Mars using its thermal emission imaging system, and every other major event that went down in 2002. After scrolling through the following years, they too had all major events listed. What I saw next was unnerving. The years that hadn't happened yet were listed, as were their events. 2021. Second wave of disease kills 6 million. My heart was racing. I was eager to read on. 2025. First contact with extraterrestrial life made. 2028, explosion in advanced technology leads to the terraforming of Mars. Climate change solutions proposed to UN with success. 2035, first humans sent to Mars. Even population distribution. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Was this just some made-up BS? Or was it real? I managed to find it easily enough, but was that yellow link temporary? What was something like this doing on the dark web? After several hours of reading about amazing future achievements of humanity, the timeline ended completely at 2040. 2040. The end. What? At this point, I relaxed. This surely wasn't real. No way. It was just one of the weirder things on the internet. But as I was about to click off and return to the safe, normal surface web, a message appeared. My screen turned a deep, navy blue, and a long string of white words lay before me in a chat room. Hello, Jack. At 2334 Charles Avenue. We're the Veil, Section 20, MW. Earth. We noticed that you found the archive, and props to you. It isn't normally that easy. In fact, you're the second human being to have done so. The first human did it all the way back in February 2014. Both times, your access was made possible because of the Sunflower link, which happens every so often. It seems there has been a breach in the code, a result of fairly poor human technology. We're working to fix that. Unfortunately for you, you have accessed our database and reviewed the archive, which you do not have permission to do. Our team are conferring at this moment to decide the best course of action. We are considering your nature. It is okay to make mistakes, because you're human. We are not. The moment I had finished reading this, the message vanished and my computer blacked out. I was frozen still. They knew my name, which isn't possible. I never, ever used my real name on the internet. They knew my address, even though I have multiple concrete VPN servers directing my location elsewhere. What the hell? We are not. Slowly, I stood up out of my desk chair, walked over to my bed and lay down. I switched on my lamp. I felt more comfortable in the light. It's been 2 days. I haven't touched my computer, nor have I heard from the Veil. But I know they feigned their consideration. I've seen what I shouldn't have. I know the end is coming. I need to escape now. But I didn't just believe them because they knew my name and address. I believed them because they said I was the second human to have discovered them. Using my phone, I scoured the web for the Veil and Section 20, MW. Earth, looking for said other human, but nothing came up. But then I tried something else. I searched redacted, and the result was a name and some kind of code. Zahari Ahmad Shah. MH370. That was all. I know what I have to do. I'm sorry. Fifth story. I participated in a dark web treasure hunt. It was a stupid-ass decision. For my birthday, I decided to treat myself to a dark web mystery box gift. It was a service I'd used several times before, and they had never disappointed, sending heaps of useless, but funny things to my doorstep. "Happy birthday, Trevor," a note on the box read. I picked up the package placed on my doorstep and noticed a letter attached to it. There comes a time in every man's life where their skills and knowledge has to be tested. With that in mind, I shall set you out on a treasure hunt. Please follow the instructions within the box, and for safety reasons, burn every letter once it has been read or solved. To my surprise, the note was signed by Pete, my best friend since childhood. It was a neat surprise, but I was confused as to how exactly he'd gotten involved with the anonymous service. Whether he was just an active user there himself who'd recognized me, or if he'd been contacted by the website, I didn't know. Nevertheless, it seemed like a cool gift. My first clue would simply be a piece of paper with two incoherent words written on it. Van Mace. Could it be a name? Maybe a location? I sat down with it and contemplated the words in front of me. After just a minute, I realized it was an anagram. The letters just had to be rearranged to form a new meaning. Man Cave was the hidden message. It was a reference to Pete's basement, a place we'd frequently spent our Saturday nights playing video games and drinking whiskey. I burned the letter in accordance with the instructions and quickly made my way to the man cave. There, I used my spare key to unlock the door, half expecting a surprise party. Instead, all I found was another clue, an ace of spades and a picture. Both were pinned to a board with an unfamiliar knife. I removed the knife and checked out the clues. The picture itself was of a place we frequently went with friends to smoke and relax. A beautiful field which no one knew about. It was just a short hike outside the city. I made my way there in about an hour. Our usual place was hidden in the shade beneath some trees. Once there, I noticed a shovel sticking out of the ground. On top of lay some fresh dirt. Spade, ace of spades. Very creative, I chuckled to myself. Without hesitation, I picked it up and started digging through the ground. After less than a minute, I hit something solid. Expecting another clue, I bent down and brushed away the dirt. As I put my hand on the cold surface, I immediately retracted it in shock. It was Pete, buried under the dirt, dead from multiple stab wounds to his chest. In shock, I called the police, devastated by the loss of my best friend. While I waited, I sat down and tried to figure out what the hell had happened. That's when I realized that I had burned every note and that my fingerprints were all over the murder scene. From the strange knife in the basement to the key and the shovel itself used to bury him. Thanks a lot for watching the video till the end. Subscribe to our channel Horror in Detail. Drop your opinions/suggestions in the comments section and like the video as it helps with the YouTube algorithm.